It's time to put a handle on this turd. I was umming and ahhing about what to do, but I think I might have an idea as to how to go about making a handle. I was wondering about what sort of wood and what not to use. Turns out I know someone who has some deer antlers that I thought I might use. It might make things a bit easier for a blade that has a hidden tang. Full disclosure, my antler contact is me mum. I don't know how or why, but she has antlers. That's a lie, I do know why. So she was planning on doing some artsy crafty things with them, hasn't got around to it just yet. So I asked if I could have a choice, make a selection, if I can have one, insert proper sentences here. But she had a few to choose from. So it's a multiple day process. So this is the selection that I have. To keep things simple, I was going to use this piece here. I found that when I held it like this, it's comfortable, the way it sweeps around and whatever. But the diameter, well, it's good this way, vertical, up and down, top to bottom. When you look at it side on, it's pretty wide compared to the blade. So I may end up going for a skinnier one and use a section of one of the thinner ones. I haven't figured out exactly what one. I'll figure that out in a minute. But they're filthy, they're dirty, and I believe they carry bacteria because antlers, which I've, as of acquiring these, found out they're bone and not fingernails, basically. So they have marrow, they have blood veins, stuff that can hold bacteria. So they need a bit of cleaning. I've heard a lot of different things about how to clean them. The most detailed version of what to do was basically to soak these with detergent water and give them a bit of a scrub to get the bulk of the grossness off, and then hydrogen peroxide, soak them for some time until they bleach, and all of that kills the bacteria, although it doesn't technically bleach them because hydrogen peroxide is not a bleach, it's a oxidizer. Still, it'll kill everything that's in it. But the good thing about using an antler is that aesthetically, I don't know, I think they look kind of cool. They're easy for a hidden tang. I mean, so is wood, but whatever. So the idea is going to be to wash them, kill the bacteria. Then in a few days, or maybe I'll do this part first, but you bore out the center, which is where the tang will slide in. Fill the hole you create with some epoxy. Set it in there and glue it and whatever. Now it's time to figure out what piece I want and get it soaking. I'm leaning towards this one because it has the nicest, straightest edge without the sides that are too messed up. I honestly don't know how to cut this. Also, my understanding is that breathing this stuff in is not very good for you. So I'll not do it. Uh-oh. Oh. That certainly could have gone better. Patience is a virtue. Luckily, that booger with a stupid saw blade, well, it's my fault. I've put a little gouge here. Luckily for me, I think that's further back than I'm going to need to worry about. I may need to modify the tang a little bit for this to work. So here I have some hot soapy water, warm soapy water. I'm just going to dump these in here. I'll let that soak for a while, then I'll scrub them thoroughly. Left these in here too long. It's been like 2.5, 3 hours now, which was not intentional. But life happens. So you can see the filth that came off them already. I wasn't expecting that. I'm going to try. I'm not really sure if this is working or not. The detergent definitely took some off. We saw the colour of the water sitting in the bottom there. I'm not overly concerned as long as the bulk has been removed. So after reading the directions that I came across on the internet for a second time, I realised that I was meant to soak the deer antlers for 24 hours. So after the last clip, I actually put them back into some soapy water for another 16, 18 hours, something like that. Gave them another scrub and they've come up like so. Did it make a difference? I mean, a little bit. I guess. So I guess now, to make the hydrogen peroxide work more effectively, faster, whatever, I'm going to drill out the marrow. So we got to get rid of that. That's a bit meh. I need to think about how long I want the tang to be. I need to think about which one of these I really want. And I need to rough out the length and shape that I want. I thought the right one would just stand out, but it isn't. Gave it a slightly better edge. Not that much better. Poor, does it stink. That marrow is very, very moist. Now just smelling it, I understand what they're saying about bacteria. I think this is the one I'm going to go with. I will cut it off short. Oh my goodness, it stinks. It's very, very smelly. I'm not looking forward to drilling that out, which is kind of the next step. Oh boy, this reeks. Absolutely reeks. I don't know how difficult this is. Oh boy. Delicious. The marrow is very soft. I'm hoping that as this sinks in, if it hits the sides, the marrow is soft enough that the drill bit will stay within the bone wall. Oh, look at that goodness. Ugh. That is disgusting. Alright, you get the gist. I'll be back when this is all done. Well, that was gross. There it is. You can see up the back there it got pretty thin. A lot of light comes through. I don't think it should be too much of a problem. I'm going to fill it with resin anyway. I did not know it was going to stink so much. My goodness, that was gross. So now, hydrogen peroxide. You can buy hydrogen peroxide for treating wounds and such, and it's like 3% or something dilution. What I read was you want more. The higher the better, the faster it works. So I've managed to get some 20%, which should be ample. I'm doing this at about 5 o'clock in the evening, so I can leave it overnight, check on it, and pull it out early or leave it for longer if I need. This container was too big. I'm just going to let it do its thing. Check on it in a little while, see how it goes. It's been 24 hours of soaking in the peroxide. I gave it another quick scrub with some steel wool. Also dropping it. It certainly cleaned it. It's made a big difference. The next step will be modifying this to make it fit into this. I used a 12.5mm drill bit to put this hole in, which should be perfectly straight. So if I were to shave this down to under 12.5mm, just slightly, I'll be able to slide it through. I'll worry about cutting the end off later, and then I'll figure out which way around this will fit better or look better, feel better, and I'll fine tune the front edge that sits up against the blade so that we have a nice transition of sorts. Then I will need to figure out a cap for the back. I'll probably have to think about something for the front as well, and what I'm thinking is using either a piece of copper or a piece of nickel to cap it off. I don't know how to do that, but it would be kind of cool if I could get it to get that to work. Alright, I have quite a bit of material to remove. Now I have to bear in mind that as I do this on either side, the piece is going to heat up, and I need to make sure I don't overheat it, otherwise I'll ruin the heat treat and the tempering. So I have a bucket of water just here to keep dipping this thing into to keep it cool. So I have a problem. This is thin enough for the hole, but there's no wiggle room, and the top of the antler is a good 5mm off the top of the blade. to do. What I ended up doing was using a rasp, elongated this hole, which allows me to have some free play here. Then I sanded using the belt grinder, got that nice and flat. So now, even though they don't match, I can now twist it. And it's a pretty good fit. It's not quite perfect, but it's pretty good. So now I have to figure out the front and the back caps. But because they're not nice round shapes or square shapes or whatever, getting a piece of copper or nickel to match the shape may prove to be difficult. I'll start by just covering the back of it. Covering the back of it. Seal it shut. Copper's very soft. I can cut it with tin snips fairly easily. Files will remove some stock fairly quickly. With that in mind, I'm hoping that if I were to cut a rough shape around this, I would be able to file it away to match. The first point of action will be to mark a shape. And now just using a pair of tin snips. Well, I've just distorted it. I might have wrecked it. That was a failure. Alright, so I went and did it properly. I used an angle grinder. It's giving me some really gross burrs and whatnot. But at least it's remained flat and flush with the antler. So what I'm thinking of doing is epoxying it to this now. Nah. It's going to be hard to show this. I got it to very, very roughly, it's oversized still, to the shape that I want. I'll epoxy these two together now and then just leave it alone for a day or so. And then I can think about filling this with epoxy, I can think about how to make the front cap, because the blade will have to go, the tang will have to go through the copper into this. So, just do this. I don't know what colour this sets. I get the feeling that this one is not the one that sets clear. So, let's start again using the stuff that specifically says dries clear. Oh, how did I know I was going to do that? And yet, despite telling myself not to do that, I did it. Alright, let's do it on the right side this time. I'm just leave that for now. Come back and have a look-see later. Copper is set. I wish I had done it slightly differently. What I should have done is clamped it together and then wiped off the excess glue with some acetone. That might cause some issues down the track, but whatever. So now I need to get a piece from here that this goes through. This might be a little tricky. I think this is a bit thicker down this end, so the hole has to be wide enough for this, which means it's probably too wide for down here. I'm gonna be honest with you. Much like every project I do, I have no idea how to do this. Alright, what I need to do is find out how far apart this area is. 12.5. Oh, I'm stupid. Nice and straight. Why won't it stay? not figured out the best way of doing this, but I have figured out a way of doing this. The file is narrower in both ways, this way and this way. So even if I get the full thing in, it should still be less than the tang, which should mean I can fine tune it a bit more once I'm done. Alrighty, got a pretty good fit here. Now I just have to figure out whether I epoxy this to this now and then the whole lot into the handle, or whether I try to do all three at once. Yeah, I guess that'll happen. And I guess that means that this is hardened pretty well. Oh yeah. Yeah, this is hardened. Okay. I really don't know what the best course of action here is. I have a good fitment. It fits well in the handle. Something I've noticed about bleached antlers is, you're not going to be able to see it. It does take on a fair bit of dirt. I'm not sure how to deal with that, but I'll figure it out eventually. Oh, I'm terrified. Alright, here goes nothing. I'm concerned I'm about to ruin this thing. I imagine that's fairly well mixed. Oh, shit. Oh boy, oh boy, oh boy. That was a lot of overfill. Oh. Yep, this is what I was worried about. Alright, so now, I might have wrecked it. Good one, Anthony. Good job. Sorry about that panic frenzy, but I am genuinely concerned that I just messed this up. Just using some acetone to wipe away the excess, which, let's face it, I'm not going to get all of it after that much spillage and seepage, which is going to cause me some pretty major issues when it comes time to staining this, which was the original plan, to stain the deer antler. But looking at how much I just spilled it, I don't know if that's going to be a realistic expectation anymore. One of the major issues is that I don't really have a bolster. There's no nice tapered transition from the handle to the blade, which would have made it a lot easier. Having the sheer edge has made it slightly more difficult. It's already started to cure and set, so there's no more wiggle room. That's how she's going to stay. And I have absolutely filthied it. I'm not sure what to do about that. Another obstacle to face at a later stage. So for now, that's how it sits. Unfortunately, I did trap a lot of the dirt and filth under the epoxy. Anywho, once this is set, I'm going to work on the copper and make it nice and, I don't know, somehow match the antler. And I'm going to also come along and finish up the bottom. So I'm going to let that sit now for quite some time to cure. Oh. Okie dokie. This has sat for a few hours now. It's probably not cured right through the center, but I'm confident that I can work on it further. So I need to tidy up this now. I tell you, not having the knowledge and understanding of these things starts to get frustrating. I mean, I started to get that thing to look pretty cool. Gosh, dang it. Just used the last of my epoxy to stick that back on. I think it didn't have enough surface area. Now that it's full of resin, Hopefully it had enough contact area. It's getting there. Now I just have to sort out this rear piece. I think it's getting overheated and just falling off. I'm not real sure, but I'll figure that out. Okay, this is pretty much it. I don't know how well this is going to work. I don't want to use a wood stain or anything. I feel like that will not have a good effect. I'm hoping that coffee, you know, I don't know. So this is pretty much the last step now. I'm just going to put it in here and I'll come back and check it periodically. 10 minutes, 15 minutes, I don't know. I honestly don't know what this is going to do. Hopefully something good. I ended up transferring it into this container because I noticed that the blade that was half dipped was being affected as well. So I put it laying down in a tub so that it has a more consistent, even coverage. Let's see what we have. Now I have a suspicion that looks very cool, but I have a feeling that once I wipe it off, we're going to lose a fair bit of that definition. I don't know what the coffee does, but it makes the dark on the Damascus look significantly darker. That's very, very cool. That was soaking for a good 5 hours, I would say. I think it looks better than it did, but it still doesn't look phenomenal. I think it's turned out pretty okay. It's one thing for it to turn out looking okay, but is it sharp? I think it's sharp. Final thoughts. I'm really quite happy with this. It's ugly. It's weird proportions. It's not a very practical knife blade shape, but I was limited by the material that I had. If I wanted to utilize the entire piece of Damascus that I had to do a stupid shape. The next one will be a proper blade. That aside, there are a few issues. It's hard to see, but it did warp slightly in the heat treat. The crack that runs up from that issue I had initially is there, but it's not as prominent as what I expected. My copper caps are okay. There's epoxy showing through. I have epoxy on the outside. I've trapped dirt all through the handle. Just more stuff to learn, but that's all right. I'm okay with that. This was a vast improvement on my last blade, so I'm not going to complain. Every step of the way I'm learning something new, learning what not to do, learning what to do. I think the heat treat on this was more successful than my last one. The blade thickness is better. I'm happier with this handle. More thought went into this. I don't know. Why don't we do a comparison? It was a long process to get to this point, but I thought we would have a look and see where I started. This was my first ever attempt at some Damascus steel. It was a failure. There are cracks that run throughout the piece. The pattern actually worked out, somewhat decently, but I had absolutely no idea what I was doing, and the end result certainly shows that. So this piece was put to the side, then along came my second attempt. I'm quite happy with the way this turned out as a first attempt at a knife. It had its issues. Things like the tang isn't very long and the pattern didn't turn out the way I planned it. The handle's pretty ridiculous. But from here to here, I think it was a fairly good improvement. And the piece that I ended up with, at least I could make something with it. So I'm happy with the improvements that I made from here to here. Then the improvement from this attempt to the third attempt was quite drastic. It's still not perfect. It's still certainly not a professionally made knife, as I still don't actually know really what I'm doing. I'm learning bit by bit as I go. But I do think that the increase in quality from this to this is huge. This one has a good tang that goes right into the handle and gives it a firm bond to the handle. This one has some caps on it made of copper, which are, I mean, they're pretty average really, but they do look kind of nice. I got a good plunge line, good ricasso. The choil certainly helped out. It's pretty sharp. It is a funky shape, but I'm over the moon with how well that turned out. Bear in mind that this is my third attempt at a knife. Through all my previous videos, you've witnessed every single step of my learning through this. So you have seen the actual progress that I have made in making these, and there's been no work in between of me practicing and whatnot that you haven't seen. This is all of the work I have put into practicing. So it just goes to show you can achieve a great many things if you set your mind to it. I think I found a hobby for which I can really be passionate. I may not always make knives, I might blacksmith something else, but I'll document all of it. You'll be here every step of the way. I do apologize for the 3 long parts to get to this point, but that's just the way it is. It's a long process. It always takes longer than I expect. There's always hiccups along the way, but that's the way it is. Thank you for watching, and I'll be back again next week with another video.